When casting around for advice in the face of adversity earlier in this century, my chief executive, David Hume, called on one of our great past presidents, the late Peter Bates. Peter said to him, "You ought to scrap this lifelong care department with its diverse collection of emergency planning teams, swimming pools, social work, and get yourself a social work department and a director of social work." So he did. And I'm here, and now I want to share something with you. In March, I went back to the place where I began my social work career in 1974, what was then known as Leven Adult Training Centre in Fife. I'd taken a 2-year break from a career in London as a trainee solicitor and responded to an advert in New Society for young graduates to come and work with what were described as mentally handicapped people. Well, recently, I noticed that what is now the Robert Goff Centre has a website, and in the photographs there, I saw many faces I remembered. So I wrote to director Stephen Moore and asked if I could visit and meet them again. Last May, I was asked to represent ADSW at a televised election debate. Scotland Decides. I asked a panel that included the First Minister, why is it that public sector workers, often modestly paid and driven by public service values, should be punished for the failings of bankers and hedge fund managers? Well, the politicians from all points on the political spectrum fell over themselves to tell me it wasn't the fault of public services, of the social worker, who's often vilified, or the home carer, who does a job that others wouldn't do, and that there's no logic behind these problems we face. But I guess that was then and this is now. So we have to listen. And we have to decide how we as a professional association can be a friend of good government, how we can better define the problems to be solved, and then work with government towards a well-evidenced solution that can build upon all that is best in social work practice and point the way forward. I mention these 10 good practice examples just to demonstrate the richness, the diversity, and the vibrance of Scottish social work that comes forward from our current arrangements. And here's my point. My point is that the challenges we face are real, they're immense, and they need a commensurate, considered, localized response. And we really cannot afford the prolonged and expensive distraction implied by wholesale structural change. In looking to the future, it's important to see where you've come from. And I've been thinking a lot about the modern history of social work, our distinctive Scottish history. And it all starts with Kilbrandon. The Kilbrandon report has a special place in our hearts. Well, why should that be? It took 3 years to develop. They went around Scotland. They travelled actually to Liverpool and Nottingham as well, looking at local partnership initiatives. And when they reported way back in April 1964, their work was acclaimed as radical, humane and far-reaching. It set a template for all of modern social work. These radical and humane proposals were enshrined in the Social Work Scotland Act, which, with appropriate amendments, has stood us in good stead to the present day. Furthermore, its clarity and simplicity can, I believe, see us forward into the approaching age of austerity and embrace the climate of empowerment and self-direction. With a daily diet of Special K, and I'm committed to engage in a hunt for evidence. To put it in the words of another borderer, the philosopher David Hume, a wise man proportions his beliefs to the evidence. Conference. As our contribution to the current debate, we've commissioned the Institute for Research in Social Services to develop work on an evidence base for what works in social work. And I'm delighted that Professor Alison Petch will be here on Friday morning to share with us her early evidence. Our transformational change manager, Wendy Harrington, has been distilling the ideas from the 32 first-round change fund programs for ADSW, and we'll of course be pleased to make all of this available to government. In thinking what works, and you know, so much works, Scotland is bursting with innovation and creative solutions to novel problems. We completed 32 change fund applications in record time, some 10 weeks. Indeed, a leading civil servant was recently moved to describe himself gobsmacked by the speed and quality of the return. So each local authority partnership can now share in the £70 million fund, and we need to make this money count. Over the next year, Vice President Peter MacLeod will work with me to advocate on behalf of the social work profession with the new government, to ensure those bodies responsible for public sector reform have full and up-to-date information in relation to the evidence of our work, and to offer them the best advice on real change and partnerships that work. ADSW believe it's the task of social work to work with people, not patients. We need to develop confidence and trust with the incoming government and position ourselves to offer credible leadership. We will argue for imaginative, locally inspired solutions that recognise the diversity of Scotland. We will strive to meet political aspirations while protecting the values we hold dear. We will strengthen our position as leaders and improve our ability to protect and promote people, families and communities we all serve each day, to ensure that social work blossoms in the new Scotland while nourishing its roots in the rich soil of our history and values. And I am reminded by an old sheriff from the borders that unless a tree has borne blossom in spring, you'll vainly look for fruit on it in the autumn. So conference, let's go to work here over the next 2 days and look for a rich harvest later in the year. Thank you very much. And don't forget your special K.